Salam and welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our original and authentic initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground. Ibrahim, can you believe it's our 21st episode?
I really can't. It's... wow. It's been a journey for 8 months.
It's surreal. Like this podcast, everything that we've been doing, the platform that we've created has been my personal coping mechanism. Without this, I don't know where I would be mentally, physically. I really don't know where I would be.
I agree. It brings me back to the first day of, the phone call that we had about starting the podcast. And it really was like things that I had, that I wanted to say, that I felt like I've been saying them in close circles. In the last episode, I talked about the lectures I've been giving. I've been doing them for 5 years, but I never got public with it. It's the same things that I've been saying in this podcast for 20 episodes, and I've never shared them, like that. And that was my therapy, and feeling that, okay, at least I know that I'm saying everything I wanted and everything I've always felt and thought, just once and for all out there for the people to know and understand what I'm thinking. And yeah, it makes me feel at peace and at ease, sharing this.
So this episode is going to be kind of around or prompted by a question that we got during one of our interviews, which is, how do you stay positive? How do you keep hope? How do you keep on going? You guys are so amazing. You're great. What you've been doing in the midst of a war, all of that talk. We get this question almost each and every interview.
So Amira, how do you stay positive?
I don't. I think, listen, it's really easy to come here in front of the camera after we've prepared previously to put a smile on, to look nice, to kind of feel positive, because it's like we're preparing ourselves. Even I think that's I think as soon as we shut the cameras off, I feel like my tone kind of goes lower. My mood is I just want to go home and scroll on my stupid phone, on my stupid Instagram, and look at stupid stuff. But I think I think my drive comes from a lot of pessimism, actually. I feel like. And I always give this example of, if you're in a room where everything's on fire, everything's burning, and you know that there's 0.0 chance that you're going to make it, you're just going to sit there. No human being is just going to sit there and wait for their death. They're going to try, even in the midst of that 0.01%, to try and get out of there, to try and knock the door open, to try and claw themselves out there. And I feel like that's exactly what we're doing. I don't feel like I don't see any hope. I don't even with the images and the pictures and everything that we're seeing, I don't see any reason to persevere and to continue and to go forward. I feel like it's all tragic. It's all, every day is worse than the other. And but all we can do is look forward. That's all we can do. It's not because I feel hope. It's because I feel like we got to do something. This can't be the only way. We have to carve a way out of this. How about you? Do you
on the hope aspect, I agree. The biggest maybe problem that sometimes we feel is that we try to look for hope.
Yeah.
And looking for hope in the middle of a war is somewhat counter effective. How can you see that much hope in the middle of a war? And I feel like, some of the things that give me the strength is to understand that we need to create hope. Because it doesn't exist. So we need to bring it somehow, even when it brings, it does bring an emotional toll on yourself after that, because you're investing so much of your emotions, your energy towards the positivity. But it doesn't mean that the negative aspects are gone, eliminated, wiped, doesn't exist. No, no, no. And then I'll go back home at night and then I'll see a couple of horrific videos and it will spiral again. I'll feel that again. It's not, you asked me the other day, how am I always smiling?
I always ask you. I think the first time when I met you, we were sitting in the office. No war, nothing. Like our also horrible reality that was prior, and you were always sitting and like smiling. It's like, Ibrahim, what the fuck's like, what keeps you so happy? Why are you always smiling? And your question was like, I don't know, I'm just a happy person. I was like, what? This is so weird. I remember like,
well, to be fair, I was born a happy kid.
MashaAllah, Allah yahmeek.
Seriously, like my mom would always say the story that when I was like, I don't know, 3, I would go from my room to my parents' room, and I had a little green tractor, tiny little tractor, that you sit in and you pedal. And I would pedal from my room to their room like I'm driving, and I would burst into the door and I'd be like, good morning. Like, that's me. Like, that was, so it's inherent. But it's not like I'm always happy, but I think I'm just a person who finds, joy in the small things in life. I think that's what the happy, quote unquote, is, I see you and I'm smiling. I'm happy to see you, so I'll be smiling, and and I guess I let my emotions take over. Like if I'm happy, I'm really happy. If I'm glad to see you, you'll know I'm glad to see you because I'm actually putting a really wide smile, not just a little courtesy smile. That means I'm not, even if it looks nice and it looks good. No, because I'm genuinely usually much more happy and on it. But it's moments, like it's things that make me happy, and then seeing people. Life is not a negative thing, and I think when I look for more and more negative, I'll find it everywhere. So I try not to look for them, and to look for the positive things in life. And when I see something horrific, I'm always reminding myself of the positive aspects about, my dynamic, my reality, things that I know that are, opposed to what I'm seeing right now. Like, this is not the entire reality. No. Like, remember, this is not all of it. And it's a personal challenge and constant work to maintain your, high levels of energy, of positivity. But my drive in general doesn't come from me being happy. My drive generally comes from people telling me I can't do something. It happens all the time. One of our friends told me, oh no, the podcast, that's not it will not work. Who's going to listen this? I'm like, oh, I'll show you. Or a friend who told me, a year ago when we had the whole protest movement against the judicial reform, and I was with him in the protests, and it was the first Arab who spoke. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awful speech. Like, give me the mic, somebody. Like, and he was like, why would anybody give you the mic? Like, people don't know you. I'm like, yeah, but I've been speaking in small groups. You know that. He's like, yeah, but no one knows that. And I was like, but I'll speak. He's like, no, you won't. I was like, you'll see. A couple weeks later, I spoke. Like, when somebody tells me that, wow, I'm showing you the opposite.
No, but it's not just that. Like, I remember I think before the launch of our first episode, like the 3rd week of the war, we were still waiting on when to publish it and talking about names and whatever. And I remember I came with like a solemn face. Like, I laugh a lot, but I have a resting bitch face. So
she does, guys. I'm telling you.
But I came and I sat, and then you were like asking me, and this is like the 3rd week after October 7th, and I was like sitting, and you were like smiling, and I was like wanted to punch you, and then you were like, what's wrong? And I was like, what's wrong? what's wrong? I feel like we're all gonna die. It's exactly. I remember I
I
told you that.
remember
I was
that.
like, I feel like we're all gonna die. That's when the conspiracy theories of a nuclear war and World War III were coming, and I was feeding into that, and I was like, holy fucking shit, I'm too young for this. Like, why did I choose this path? Why couldn't I have just like taken a simple life? And you also were like called me. I remember in the beginning, it was like, I just want to walk dogs. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fucking do this. Like, why am I exhausting myself? Why do I make this my reality? I don't want to. But I don't even see you doing anything else. I don't see myself doing anything
It's my
else.
calling. That's what I feel. Like I was born to do this. Like,
I
it
don't
doesn't
know about
matter.
myself if it's born to do
It doesn't
this,
matter if
but
it's here. It doesn't matter if I live, I don't know, if I live somewhere else in the world, I'll still work on this topic. I'll still work on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And if it's not a conflict and we solve it and it's about the reality and the next steps into integrating these two states together and forging a new future, it will always be around something to do with this. That's my personal calling in life, is that I'm here for this.
you know about that creating hope aspect. When I first heard about it, I was also like, we were starting the podcast, and I was like in and out, and I heard it actually from our first guest, Hamza Awaude. We were at London at a peace vigil, and he was speaking, and started talking about how his grandfather died fighting for the state during 48, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not 48. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but his grandfather died as a combatant, like as someone who fought. And he was like, I don't want to die. I have no hope right now. My son has no hope. And therefore, I will create hope for him. And that's exactly what everyone should be doing. There is no hope. Recognize that. We need to create it. So that's when I started using it a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that he used that. Shout out to Hamza then. And what can I say? Great minds think alike.
True.
No, and he's incredible, and
Yeah.
it's a real thing because it's true that without us creating it, it's not like you're walking outside now and you're seeing hope everywhere. Like it's not the case. Even if you're talking about the Jewish Israeli public alone, outside of our identity, all these things that we have, there's not much hope there either. Hostages are still there. There's no change in the reality. The general public, you have a government that literally doesn't set down what are the goals of the war and how to get there. So you are in a limbo. You're confused. You don't know when this war is going to end. Your government doesn't give you answers. There's no hope, and just chanting to you, the slogans of complete victory and we're just a step away from victory and all that. You can't drag a population for 8 months on empty slogans. At the beginning, they can work because you're motivating and, it's a morale booster. You can't manage a war on morale booster alone. It doesn't work. And the Israeli public is exhausted from that. Even the Israeli public is exhausted. So obviously, of course, the Palestinian public is devastated from that. And you can't see hope here or there. So you have to create it.
I remember you telling me about an encounter that you had about when you were on the train.
Oh, the train guy. Oh, my God.
I really want you to tell this to our listeners.
Yeah, it was the other day. I get on the train and out of nowhere, the guy sits in front of me. He was, let's say maybe in his 50s. He was religious. Yeah, Jewish religious, kippah. He sits down. And out of nowhere, he just comes to me and is like, leans in and is like, I'm not worried about the enemies from outside. I'm worried about the enemies from within. And, I'm just looking at him like, what? Does he know I'm Arab? Like, what what does he mean by
Am I
that?
wearing?
Yeah, does it say on my forehead right now, I'm an Arab? Or like, and then he's just like, and I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, have you ever heard of opposition in the Arab world? It doesn't exist. You know where it does exist? Here. Because here, apparently, we have this something called democracy, and it's creating this enemy from within that's called opposition. And then he was like, and then he went back, and then he mentioned how the Jewish people, when they got out of Egypt, I don't know if that's true. I've never heard that statistic before, but he said that only 20% left Egypt, and that the majority stayed, didn't trust the word of God and Moses and all of these things, and were murdered. So like those who didn't follow the right path perished. Even like I made the association myself, right? Because he didn't mention anything. He just said 20% survived and 80% got killed, and that explains it all. I'm like, explain what? Like, but I didn't want to delve into it. But that's, he was.
You didn't talk to him?
I gave him like half answers. Like, what am I gonna engage in a like it didn't sound like it's someone who's gonna actually engage right now in a proper someone who's thrown me a slogan about no opposition in the Arab world and whatever. Like, Arab world has people who are against their governments.
They're just in prison.
They're just imprisoned, or they're silenced, but it doesn't mean they don't exist.
No, a lot of people are losing their minds. What's going on? Like, when we've seen a lot of death, we're still seeing a lot of death, both jointly and separately as Palestinians and Israelis. And it makes you go cuckoo. Like, it does the little things to your switches up there. So I'm not surprised. Like, there's a lot of.
He just, it's the people who are supporting the kidnapped are now anti-Israeli somehow. I don't know how that happened. But people who are calling for the return of the hostages now are somewhat now, like, there's a new narrative that's trying to put them as illegitimate, as that they're not caring for the future of the state. There was one woman who was on the radio the other day who was like, there's no urgency in the Israeli public. Ugh. Like, okay, great. A few thousands go on Saturday night and they protest. And, if we want to return people and to call the government, it needs to be millions. And she was like saying, that's my son who's there. Or I think it was her dad. It was like, my dad is there. My dad is alive. And people go to bars. People go to the beach. People
Pride is coming up.
People go to clubs. Like, people have gone back to somewhat normal lives within all this chaos in Israel, especially in the center. And that, there is an exhaustion of the public, but at the same time, without a real push, it will not gonna, you're not gonna shake the country down. And it's just frustrating how, even the families of the hostages, people are going against them sometimes, or I don't know how they, talk about exhaustion and mental fatigue. I don't know how they do it every week, everywhere, in government, on the streets. Unbelievable. Knowing that you have a family member who is alive or probably alive, and every day you're like, okay, I might have lost the chance to bring them back alive. I don't know how they deal with it.
And even when they see the images coming from Rafah or coming from Gaza in general, I think they see their hostages there.
Yes.
Like, they see, like, any one of those children, any one of those women and men could be them, could be their family.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, like, what's going on makes sense. And it saddens me. What do you think about what she said about it needs to be millions and thousands and that there's no urgency? You feel like there's no urgency?
She broke my heart a bit, in terms of, I understand where she's coming from. Because, if it doesn't happen to you, you're not going to go like crazy, with knife in your teeth. But I think part of the problem is that even the return of the hostages have gone into a political worm pool.
Like a black and white kind of thinking.
Yes.
Whoever supports return of the hostages in a deal is like...
Yeah, it's like you're saying, you want the return of the hostages in a deal now? Oh, you're abandoning the security of the state. Even though it's not the case. But they're equating that to that. And even though, but still, in the same time, you have others who are even within the more the right-wingish side who are also saying we're exhausted from the war. This government has no real plan. Like, these two things are happening at the same time. It's such a mixed bag of emotions and of developments in the past couple months and last few weeks that it's like it's hard to grasp on one notion that is happening only alone. Like multiple things are happening at once, I feel,
Talking about multiple things happening at once. Have you seen the new social media thing that's been up?
No.
The like we're back. It's like the beginning. It's like since October 8th, since the retaliation. The all eyes on Rafah, and where were your eyes on October 7th? If your eyes are on Rafah, look for our hostages. Something like that. And I know we posted all eyes on Rafah, and we did it before this entire stupid thing started. When this stuff when
I didn't even know there was something stupid things happening on this.
No, it's really ridiculous. Like what's going on? It's like,
can you explain?
It's like all the pro-Palestine camp is all eyes on Rafah. And the counter side, which is the pro-Israel side, is...
where were you?
Yeah,
where
were your
eyes on October 7th?
And if your eyes are on Rafah,
tell us where our hostages
yes, or keep an eye on the hostages or something like that. And... it's just devastating. Like everyone, and it's like no effort is being put. Like there was the blackout, the celebrity blackout that happened before, where the pro-Palestinian camp launched this kind of blocking campaign of anyone who hasn't supported or isn't currently supporting or educating or talking and speaking out about what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in Gaza, is being blocked. And a lot of people, like big celebrities, that pop celebrities specifically in the States, like Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, Kim Kardashian, all these have lost a lot of followers, like a lot of followers. And people are some accounts are keeping count of how many they lost. And it's like more than thousands. And it's not just an unfollow, it's a block. Like it affects the algorithm in a certain way. And now it's all the people that want to jump on the bandwagon in order to avoid being on that block list are just sharing this eyes on Rafah with no information, with no context, with no actual stance of what is like what do you mean, like what it's an AI image. Both of them are like AI generated images of like I'm sure.
Is that the tent one like this with like mountains in the background or whatever? Like
no.
The all eyes on Rafah one.
It's the one that's made up of tents.
Yeah, that one.
All eyes on Rafah.
That's what I mean.
And the other one is like a baby. It's very graphic. It's like a child with like a Hamas terrorist behind with a gun and whatever, and like about October 7th. And I don't know. It's just like social media right now is extremely exhausting. It's like a lot of activists are noting it. Even like hostage family members like Alana that we brought.
Yes.
And interviewed. She talked about it a lot. Itai, also someone who we collaborated with, also talked about it a lot. About like we're back to the football match. That's where we're at right now. We're back at the football match. It's AI generated images of like people that know nothing are just like adding it's like add yours. Like you just press one button and you select that image and that's it. Tayyib, what happens? Like what the fuck are you doing? Like I understand when Standing Together uses it. I understand when other activists use All Eyes on Rafah, but
with text and
text and content, and not just text. Like not just text. It's like their trajectory of their work have shown where they stand and what they're actively doing. It's not like some bullshit celebrity or some like quote unquote activist and influencer that are again jumping on the bandwagon of wearing a kufiya in their
Story
in
or
their
something.
story, or doing, I don't know, like things that show that they support Palestine when they don't know where the fuck they're saying. And it's also sad that also from the pro Israeli camp that are just retaliating with another AI image. Is that what this like? It really kind of like we're saying all eyes on X, no eyes are on anything right now. Anything. Everything that happens on is triggered on social media, whether it's the protests, whether it's the encampment protests in the student campuses, whether it's these social media campaigns, the block out. It's all like blind. Like we're talking about eyes, it's blind. Like no one actually understands what they're doing. And again, I'm not talking about the activists that have been doing work ever since before this shit show, but it's just the people, the experts on the Middle East that have risen in the past 8 months, and it just adds more fuel to the fire. We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot. Something that I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about confliction and emotion and black and white thinking, or black and white. A few days ago, I know we're gonna release this a little later, but when the fire broke out in Rafah, it was a
Yes.
Saturday, right?
Yes.
It was a Saturday, and we saw horrific images coming out of Rafah. What did you feel?
I felt literally sickened.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing body pictures being carried out and burnt. That was. And then I like just closed the media. I didn't want to see any of that. And yeah, it was. I felt like.
I'm
What the,
asking you as Ibrahim
yeah.
and as
Like what the hell?
someone who works in this field.
It's like what the hell am I doing? How can I help? How can I actually do something that would, you know, save lives? Like did anything that I do help to
Yeah.
save those people? It's like probably not. And it was very difficult, to be honest, to see the horrors. I try sometimes not to over digest it because it just then I'm the one who's like, in an emotional imbalance, and then I don't function properly. So I sometimes put a wall and try to like, separate myself emotionally. Because when I saw them, I was like, oh my goodness, like I couldn't bear it. And then after that, I was trying to numb myself emotionally from it. But then the next day comes in and you're like, yeah, it happened. And, I was worried that we're taking another step of no return.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of the first things I thought about. It's like, okay, so October 7th was step of no return. Are we taking more steps we'll not go back from? Like, because if something we didn't know the magnitude of it at the time was how large is the damage, and how will that affect the war? Because if it was something massive, it can stop the war. We've seen it in the past. Talking generally speaking, when you have strategically speaking and military speaking, militaries try not to over increase the number of civil casualties, not just for the moral thing on their own, but also because the international community holds you accountable on that and holds you accountable on the morality and international law. I know people think it's a joke, but it's not. In the Second Lebanon War in 2006, when Israel hit, I can't remember, I think it was a school at the time, and there was weapons held inside, but Israel thought the school was empty, but it wasn't. And there were horrific images of kids in the school being taken out, the world pushed Israel to stop the war.
Mm-hmm.
And it did stop the war. Because once you do something like that, and the international community is up in your neck, it will drag you towards ending the war. That's part of the military strategies when you think about hitting a target that has collateral damage, is thinking whether or not this collateral damage is going to affect your long-term strategy of continuing the war.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the war stops, you're not achieving the goal of the war. So that happened in the past, and I was like, is this going to end the war, or is it going to be like, it will not end the war, and then, okay, that means everything goes. You know, if this is not going to end the war, then what will?
It's a horrible thought. That's a horrible thought.
What about you?
Ironically enough, I was in Haifa. I was on like a vacation. I was
Mini rest.
Yeah. And I was trying, and I succeeded in the beginning, not to be on my phone, not to scroll. Like I I went on a very long, tiring hike. And I just wanted to disconnect as much as I can because of my well-being, because of my mental state, because I did get to a point where I wanted to quit. Like, I really wanted to quit. Like, I wanted nothing to do with this. I didn't express this to you.
You were going to leave me alone?
I was like, I can't do this anymore.
What the hell, Amira?
It's
You're abandoning the ship.
It's after I went and I saw another conflict zone, a resolved conflict zone. I can't share anything about it yet, but it made me see what peace looks like and how shitty peace is, and how the people that were us, whether they were like combatants, whether they were like on any side of the fighting, they were scarred for life. And the only thing that they could save was, and you could see it in their eyes, and the only thing that they could save is the children, is their kids, the next generation. So in my mind, I was like, obviously there was other thoughts about, should we collaborate with like quote unquote the other side, and should we, like, all of these thoughts rose up to me. But the most starking thing was, why should I do the work? Like, why isn't it traumatizing enough? And then comes the guilt, because when you're in here, when you're in Palestine and Israel, you feel it in a different way. And when you leave, it hits you 10,000 times more. Because everyone like expects you to be the Palestinian. Everyone expects you to be a certain way. And you see how much people are doing to support the Palestinian cause, to a point where like guilt rises up. I don't know if you met that when you went to London. Obviously, it withers away a little bit when you see the stupidity of people and how they're, again, chanting blindly. But some people are doing legit work. And you see how much traumatized other people are from the Israeli camp. So that makes you also more angry at the other side. And I came back and I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I'm focusing my things, my energy on the wrong angle. Maybe I should just be talking to Palestinians. Maybe we're the ones that need help. Maybe we're the ones that need to be empowered. We need 1, 2, 3, and 4, and no one's doing this. Maybe I'm wasting my time and I'm being tokenized, and a lot of negative things. And I sat with that a lot. That's why I needed this break. I needed that break. And I was like, okay, if I'm not doing this, what am I doing? And I literally thought about it before I raised it with you. And then I was like, I go back to the comments and I go back to the DMs that we get, and I go back to the session that we had from our Patreon, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed, you should go check it out. And you see how some people's lives have literally been influenced by what we do. How some people have been starting, like Israelis have been starting to learn Arabic because of our podcast, because they see how important of a role it is to understand the other, or quote unquote the enemy, yani. And during that break, I mistakenly opened my Instagram, and the video that I saw was the video of the like burnt kid with no head. And I literally stared at it like, is this real? Am I looking at is this real? And I remember reading something because I saw a picture of an Israeli soldier in Gaza University burning the books. And I remember before the burning, the caption that was written underneath was, "Those who burned books will in the end burn people." And then when I was thinking, I was no, like in my head I was like, this is an exaggeration. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, they're vandalizing the place, they're burning it, they're graffitiing, like putting Magen David and doing again false representation of the Jewish people and all of that, which is a different topic. And that's the first thing that hit me in the face. I was like, what the fuck? And then the guilt came and the sadness came. And I just wanted to go back to my apartment. I didn't want to detox anymore. I didn't want to, I don't know. I feel like it's a lose-lose situation. I feel like we continue in this and this is the reality. And if we leave, it's like survival's guilt, and like you abandoned the cause that you were at.
Yeah, Amira, like abandoning the podcast.
Hey, I didn't do it. I'm still here. I'm still here. I didn't leave you alone.
Me talking by myself to myself. That's interesting. Nobody wants to listen to me.
I would say that maybe they're just here because I'm a pretty face, but they don't see my face. But don't you feel that way?
Let's say I try not to. Mm-hmm. Because I try to, once I get those questions, it's like the guilt is more like, if I don't do it, who is?
That's the thing. That's the guilt. Like if I leave,
if I leave, then who's going to do it? Like, am I also going to toss it on someone else? Like, I think that we should have, each of us should have, personal responsibility. But if everybody else is tossing the responsibility, then what have we achieved by that? Nothing. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue the same cycle. For me, it's like, I want to feel at peace knowing that I've did all I could. I've tried all I can. Mm-hmm. That gives me the comfort and feeling of peace, is that I know that I'm doing everything I can to make it better. Will it? I don't know. But am I trying? Yes. And I'm trying as much as I can and putting my energy and putting it towards what I believe is the positive place. And that gives me peace, I think, is knowing that I'm doing my part without looking at, it's fucked. Like there's no solution. And the situation is like, I have those small moments, but in the general sense, the overwhelming feeling I get is being empowered by knowing that I'm not tossing aside my own responsibility in this. I can be a procrastinator in a lot of things in my daily life, my personal stuff, but here I'm not tossing it and saying later, or I'm not doing it, or let's put it on the shelf. Like, no, this is my role, and I do feel like this is my calling. So if it's my calling and I'm actually doing something about it, it motivates me to actually do it and to actually, try to achieve. Even, sometimes I ask, does it even help? Does it even do anything?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but I'm trying, and we're we're trying to create this hope, and some people are grabbing the hope, so that's
Something has to
at
count
least
as
that's something.
something.
Yeah, that's something. We at least do something. And it's only, for me, it's only a path to more, right? Like, and literally, it's what we said in the past episode about how, we're starting from a podcast that was just us wanting to let out our feelings about everything that was unfolding. And now we're talking about a movement.
Yeah.
So once you start the initial thing and you take the mantle, doors will open and more things will happen. And, the positivity also has a wiggle effect, not just the negative.
Yeah.
We'll start from this and then we move on to a movement, and then, I don't know, God knows where we'll end up. Sitting on the table with the next prime minister, telling him,
How he should run his
here's
country.
a map. Give me a pen. Let me line it up for you. But yeah, I believe in that. That gives me the strength.
I know I have been taking the lead, so feel free to ask me if any question that you would like. But we talked about the Saturday, about the Rafah burning, the tent burning. I don't know what they're calling it. Well, they're calling it the tent massacre, but I'm referring to the burning. A day after that, there were sirens.
In Herzliya, it was really weird.
Well, yeah, it was we haven't had any sirens or rockets in 4 months. But not only was there sirens in Herzliya, there was a direct hit.
Yep.
I think somewhere close to where you live.
Yeah. One neighbor, 2 neighborhoods above.
How was it to going, and correct me if I'm wrong, to going from one tragedy to one of your people, one side of your people, and I assume that would make you feel maybe more Palestinian, and then
the burning,
yeah. And then the next day, literally the next day, not even 24 hours later, you have a direct hit that you literally feel in your apartment building shake. How is that?
First, I'm not so sure that I used to think maybe I'm turning more Palestinian or more Israeli, but I think it's more because these two things, are part of who I am, and I think that I'm just connecting to that side right now at this point of time, to that part of who I am.
Mm.
It's not that I'm okay, now I don't feel Israeli, now I'm Palestinian, and then now I'm Israeli, now I'm not Palestinian. It's like I'm connecting to that element of who I am, of the identity. I'm connecting with my people right now, where they're suffering, with people being burnt fucking alive, and God knows I could have been there.
Yeah.
Or my family, or And then the next day, yeah, you're like, it could have been my house. It could have been my neighbor's house. And yeah, when the siren hit, it took me a few seconds to realize that there is a siren. And then I literally had an uncomfortable feeling. I usually take my time. It's like, we have time. There is a siren. You walk downstairs easy. Yesterday, Sunday, I was like, something is off. I'm grabbing my keys right now and I'm going downstairs. And then you hear a boom and the whole house, the building shakes. And I was like, okay, yes, there was it. I knew there was a hit, that it's not an interception.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, you're like, I wonder if people there are okay. If they're safe. They also don't deserve to have their house bombed right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that connects you with them. You connect with them, and you can connect with both, and each one during his strategy. And this is, again, why our position and our identity is so special in this conflict, and that it's a blessing and a curse, because you can connect to both people.
How's it a curse?
Because you're not just feeling one side's pain, you're doubling your pain.
Mm.
You're not happy for the pain of the other and only suffering from your pain, or not happy, or at least not triggered by it.
Yeah.
Here you're triggered all the time by each suffering that each one has. I saw the documentary about the Israeli minister. Wow, if anybody didn't watch it and they speak Hebrew from our listeners, you have to watch it, about Miri Regev. The corruption in this government is unbelievable.
Even beyond this war.
Beyond what you might even imagine. That little 2 days into the war, October 10th, she's talking about the political map. October 10th, like Hamas was not even like they were still
Kibbutzim?
in the kibbutzim, like there were still battles there. And we're not even talking about battles inside Gaza, and she was already talking politics and right versus left and how to leverage it to get political leverage. 2 days in, people are still fucking like on the streets. Bodies were still thrown everywhere, and you talk about that. If I didn't have any Israeli emotions, I'd be like, okay, screw this country's going to hell. But no, I was like, we're going to hell. Like we're screwed. Like if this is the reality and this is the leadership and this is the system, like we're fucked. It was unbelievable. And really, people need to watch and be educated and learn about some of the things that are happening inside the government. Holy shit.
For me, the negative part is the loneliness. Like I know, yes, we have a big community. We have
each other.
Yeah, we do have each other. We have a big community. We have a lot of support. But at the same time, sometimes I feel like I want to scream, literally, and I can't. I feel like I want to scream and
scream
I can't.
Right now. No one's listening.
No. I care about the ears of our listeners too much. That's why I wouldn't scream nor sing. No, but like when you sit
alone,
not yes, when you sit alone, but even when you sit with people, one, I'm fed up of the politics talk because we do it
all the time,
and that's what everyone just wants to talk about. And two, like positivity and hope and empathy are radical feelings right now. Like they are on the radical side. Like people label it as radical. Like even, and I'm not talking even about Israelis. I'm talking about like us within our own, within our own like society and with our own community. And let's say like quote unquote, our people. No one wants to hear you empathize with anything that's going on or any nuance. So sometimes you just gotta shut up. You either shut up or people don't want to hear what you're saying, or you decide that you don't want to hear their bullshit because they're extremely angry. And again, I understand where the anger comes from, but I don't want to soak into that. Like I can't talk to my family right now about any nuance or a future or anything. I can't even bring up anything anymore, and even when we were like doing that, the Nakba videos, I felt like it was like, I don't know. I felt like I was tiptoeing a little bit, and I couldn't. Like we asked one of the women about the hope that they have and of a better future and the what's it called? One of the women that said about greed. Like we asked her, like, do you think that there will ever be an agreement or something, a ceasefire or a solution? And it didn't make the final cut, but her answer was no, because the Jews are greedy, the Israelis are greedy. And then we paused, and then we asked her, it's like, don't you think we're greedy? Don't you know, like, don't you remember that we've never like also agreed to a deal to actually recognize the state of Palestine and have a state and all of that? Like, yes, the other side is also fucked up, but we're also fucking greedy. Like we want from the river to the sea for it to all be Palestine. And then she was like, yeah, you're right. And she also started wondering, I wonder what it would be like if we agreed to the partition. If we agreed.
Yeah. If she said the biggest mistake on the Arab side, on the Palestinian side, was refusing the partition plan.
Yeah,
which is crazy to think about, So, but it's interesting. It's someone who's, I've lived through Nakba and lived through 48, and now 80 years, 75, 76 years later, you're like, I wonder if that was the wrong decision that created all this chaos. It's a real question.
Just like to understand the people, especially the elder people the older generation that has went through, that have so much anger and rage, and they're the people that actually like maybe are not even in the pool of our target audience, that they're not like the yes people at all. They're not the people that
On
want
the
to,
fence.
yeah, they're the people that like khalas, like they don't want to even talk or hear us. Um, Imagine if they accepted the fact that to talk to us, that we are not demons, that we are not the devil in their story from either side. That would kind of delegitimize or dilute their life experience. That's how I'm starting to look at it. It's like that's where it's not just the pain and the anger, but if they choose one day, like let's say they're 60 or 70, if they choose to one day now acknowledge that they need to get over their pain, then what was it for? Why
I don't think they need to, get over their
not
pain.
get over it? But if like what was their anger for these entire years and every,
But I think, they are like, like the same person, she did make the division between the people, and then she said, yes, it's the government, right? When we pressed her on, you think they're all like that? When you ask, and she's like, no, I know we're talking about the government. She'll put them all in one box, but then if you ask her actually, do you think that all the Jewish people are in the same, and then she'll say no. But it's a generalization statement. But and I think people are able to divide the two things and be like, okay, this entity as an entity, as a government, as a political movement, this is what caused my pain, but not necessarily the person who is Jewish as a religion.
No, but imagine what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like imagine that you're one of them. Like you're one of the old ladies that we interviewed.
Okay.
And you walked and you lost daughters and your father and all of that, and you were given the hope of returning. And you were given, the promise, not the hope, the promise of returning, the promise of a Palestinian state, the promise of justice. And you need to come to a point where, the opposite of that justice is the existence of the state of Israel. That's like that. Let's say that's the mentality. And then you need to come to a point where you need to acknowledge that no, the state needs to exist and we will exist aside by it. You kind of like feel like, so what was it all for? Like that was my entire message. It makes their message kind of diluted in a way.
But maybe that's why she mentioned the partition plan,
Maybe.
like also thinking, was it all worth it? Because also, we're looking at it with the promise that they've been given, but also at the same time, you can look at it from the other side of it, which is the awful conditions that they endure. Is that worth it? Is the promise worth the horrific conditions that they live through? Or are they focused right now on these horrific life experiences and hoping not to pass it down to another generation? But the problem here is that, particularly on the Palestinian side, we're keeping fueling that promise of return of from the river to the sea. That like these slogans continue to exist today, 80 years later. So it's not like it's a one day thing, and what happens because of that is that the people are feeding into the promise because it's on a nationalist level. It's one of the highest levels of emotions that you can find, and to be attached and all these things. But at the same time, people can sometimes look at the other side of things, be like, is all this suffering worth it? And I'm wondering, maybe a day in time things will flip. And even you told me once, what Reverend Gary
Mason?
Mason, when he told you about, what made them switch in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, from wanting to fight.
I asked him, why aren't we there yet? I asked
Exactly.
him, how can we get to a point where you got?
Exactly. And what was his answer?
There wasn't enough bloodshed. That they got to a point where the streets were too bloody for them to continue fighting.
So my question is, I mean, I hope that we're smart enough, right? Because it already happened in history, to learn from other tragedies, to not get to the point of the streets are full of blood so we can wake up and realize that we need to better reality. That's my hope. That's why I'm here right now. It's one of those things, or one of the most important things about this initiative, is that to wake people up before we reach that tragic day that we would have. Because I don't want to get to that place so we can have that realization. That's not even good enough for me. Oh, we suffered so much that we
Well, you
got
don't
sick
think
of
we're
it?
there yet?
It sounds like no.
That's sad.
No, it sounds like we're actually like at the
Crossroad?
yeah, we're at the crossroad where the ship can tilt either way. Like even when you're here in Israel, the different views, you can see that both views exist right now. And it's all about where the energies and the focus and the will be directed to. Either continuing this rhetoric of only force will give us security, or only reconciliation and conflict resolution will give us security. It could go either way. Our goal or our mission, I think, in that challenge is to try to drag the ship towards the reconciliation as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We're just one drop in the bucket of other people who are going to do the same. But I don't want to get to the point of desperation before we get to that. I don't want to, get to a point of, no, we're not in that point. Because Israel had the most horrific day in its history, but it's a day. Right now,
No, what are you talking about?
it's meaning it was the worst day.
But it's 8 months.
It's 8 months of war, but not 8 months of suffering of the war.
But you're just looking at the Israeli side.
No, I'm talking here on the Israeli side.
Okay.
Because on the Israeli side, it's easier not to feel that there's enough blood, because it's the army fighting. You're not getting bombarded every day in Israel.
Now?
Now, I'm talking about now. October 7th on its own, it's not one day event. It's the whole conflict till after that. Because, it's not like it's only October 7th and people took a pause and was like, okay, this is too much. We need to find It's like immediate response and an immediate war after. But looking at the war 8 months later, people go to the beach in Tel Aviv. How is that a war? At the bars, at the beach.
I don't know.
People take vacations. So...
But you're looking...
No, but what I'm saying is, on the Israeli side, I cannot wait till that point of desperation, because we're not there. Because people are getting back to normal life. It's going back to the same thing that the woman said about her dad being a hostage, and there's not enough urgency. People are going out. People kind of like... It's became sideshow of their lives. That the war is in the back of people's minds, not at the front anymore in Israel. So that makes less urgency to end it. It's not affecting your daily life. The ones who are
Fair,
pushing
but I
are
don't
the
think-
North and the South who are
I was going to
displaced.
say that. The North and the South.
Who are
They're still in October 7th.
But do you want?
They're still in the same day.
Do we want to say the awful truth about it? The country doesn't care about the North and the South. That's
That's true. They're not on the news.
It doesn't care. The country cares about two things. The center, where all the business is at, all the money, all the high tech, it's the heart of the country is at the center of the country. Not at the north and not at the south. And Jerusalem. That's it. It's the ugly truth. The north and the south have been defunded and lack of funding in compared to the center for the past 50 years, not 20 years. It's like throughout all our existence, we knew that the South and the North are not the same focus and importance as the center to this country. And marasot. It's part of the... And the people in the North and the South know that very well.
Whether it's Arabs or Jews.
Yeah.
Like Bedouins, not like whatever. Like there's a difference. There's like a conversation to be had, but like it's...
But a general thing, the North gets less funding. It's just a thing. It's a fact. And... when you have that, and when the main core of the country is not hit, then life can continue on. because the engine of the country is still running, so it's fine.
That's why the targets of Hamas is usually the center and Jerusalem.
It's because that's the spine core of the country. And if we're going to wait until a point of all the Israeli public needs to feel that desperation, we're waiting for World War III. That's not going to happen with Hamas. It will happen with Hezbollah and Iran. If the Israeli public will feel like, it's either we solve this conflict now or we're doomed because we're screwed with a war with Iran and the rest of the region, that's World War III scenario. We can't get to World War III so we can realize, wait, guys, let's solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict before it gets out of hand. Like, are we kidding ourselves? That can't be the rationale. It has to be before that.
I wanted to end this episode with hope.
Sorry about that.
I really wanted to end this episode on a straight note that we're not quitting, we're continuing.
You said I'm the happy one in this duo, no? So look at this beautiful smile, guys. Come on. No, I wish they could see it, but you can vouch that I'm smiling back again. I'm always frustrated, but hopeful at the same time. Realist and optimist at the same time.
Realist is in the middle. An optimist is kind of delusional. An optimist is where you enter Delulu land.
That's idealist. No, optimist is someone who hopes for better while knowing the situation is really shit.
Okay, fine,
like, I'm realist.
fine.
I know it's shit, but I'm hoping for better. Idealist, like, everything will be fine. No, I don't think it's going to be fine.
Sunshine and rainbows.
But I'll try my best to make it better than it is, for sure.
Okay.
That's an optimist. That's a positive note.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. So this episode was kind of different. We know that we have been bombarding you guys. Maybe bombardment isn't the right word to use, but we know that we have been...
Striking. No, I'm kidding.
We know that we have been interviewing a lot of people, having discussions and inviting guests a lot. So we thought maybe 2 episodes in a row, we would bring our actual true emotions, our actual raw feelings, and just be Ibrahim and I. We hope you liked it. We hope you enjoyed. Please give us our feedback. Let us know what you want to hear, because we're here for you the same way that you're here for us. Like, we talk about hope. What gives us hope is you guys and the people that stop us in the street. Like, even when I'm having the worst day, I'm like, aren't you the girl with the podcast? And I was like, yes, I am. And then it's really nice. Like, people that thank us and tell us that we were the beacon of hope in their dark days. And you guys are the beacon of hope in our dark days. So, you want to add anything else?
Just a thank you to everyone for everything they've been doing, all their support. And you guys know, خلاص, بكفي, enough. We had enough. We need a better reality because we deserve better.